Hey everyone, it's Melissa. Welcome back to another episode of the Social Angle podcast. I'm so excited that you're here. So, this week I had the pleasure of sitting down virtually with Kirby Hosman, who is, in my opinion, synonymous in the promotional products industry with good quality content marketing. So, Kirby is such a good dude, and his work ethic is unmatched in this industry. So, since I had an hour to chat with him, I wanted to go behind the scenes of his content marketing empire and talk about his podcasts, blogs, social media, the mindset hacks that he's developed to stay consistent and reach his goals as a professional. Also, how he went from practicing traditional sales to meshing that with inbound and content marketing for success, and how that has provided him a platform built on trust, credibility, and authority in this industry. So it's a really fun episode. So let's dive in and get into it. Kirby, you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the show.
I am so excited and so flattered to be here. I really appreciate you inviting me. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you came on because I've wanted to interview for so long. So when you said yes, I was like, oh, I have so many questions. This is going to be such a fun episode. So thank you for giving me some of your time this Wednesday.
Absolutely. I love what you guys are doing. I mean, all of ASI, but I love what you're doing on social media. So it's an honor.
Well, thank you so much for the compliment. I really appreciate it. And I wanted to ask you, I feel like you are so prolific with the content that you create in this industry, and you have been so consistent. I feel like that is one of the secrets, really, from an outside perspective to your success. But for somebody who's new to this industry and still kind of learning some of the big players in marketing, can you tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, how you got started?
Sure. Yeah. So I own a distributorship here in Coshocton, Ohio, Hosman Marketing. So distributorship, I kind of entrepreneurial. I've had a couple other companies as well. And then we do, some folks know us because I do Delivering Marketing Joy, which is a weekly web show. I do a podcast with Bill Petrie called Promo Up Front. Yeah, and then thank you. And then with blogging, I'm a big believer in content marketing. And so I think we create content that hopefully resonates with our customers, but some of it's very personal development as well. So I think the industry has really taken a shine to it as well, which is super flattering.
Yeah, it's nice to see kind of the mix, because I feel like now the kind of model that you're using to promote yourself and your business in this industry is much more widely embraced than what it originally was. And there is still some people who, kind of shy away from creating content, or it's maybe a process that just feels overwhelming to them because they don't know where to start with so many options. But I feel like the cool thing for you is like how you've really set yourself apart has been through that personal development element. Like that, like flavor is cool because I think people look for that. Like they want something that's going to inspire and motivate them as business professionals. But
yeah, well, I always say that sometimes the two things that come to mind. Number one, Bill Petrie and I talk about this all the time. We are not a great decider of what's really going to resonate, right? So it's one of the reasons we preach consistency so much, because I don't know what is going to go really well or really poorly. Sometimes I write a blog post that I think everybody's going to love, and then nobody cares. And then I write
so
something. Yeah, right. And yeah, this is going to change the world. No one cares. But then on the other side, I'll write something fairly quickly and I just put it out there and it really resonates. And I say that to say that I think sometimes we self-edit ourselves when we're creating content, and sometimes it's just a matter of putting another one out there. But the other side of that, the personal development side that you referenced, is I think sometimes the best content is the content that I needed to hear that day.
Yeah.
Right. Like sometimes I'm writing it for my daughter, or I'm writing it for me. And so it's like that sort of content often is the stuff that resonates with me. And I find that it resonates with the folks who are watching. And ultimately, if I'm providing value, then usually it ends up on the right side of things.
Yeah, 100% value being that keyword, no matter what it is. If it's valuable to your audience, like you'll get traction.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you though, because you are such a huge proponent of content marketing, I
Mhm.
find it interesting because that wasn't always kind of your approach to sales and
Yeah.
marketing.
Yeah.
And I think it's so cool you made a pivot and you've integrated both. So kind of, can you explain like what your process was prior to leaning in and maybe what sparked your evolution to try new things, especially content marketing?
Yeah, no, I love this question. So thanks for doing your research, right? So, yeah, I, like a lot of folks, I mean, I got into the business and I wasn't necessarily planning to go down this path. And when I got in, I left a good job. I had a salary and benefits. There was even daycare.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, and I left to go into straight commission sales because, you start to realize how entrepreneurial you are. I wanted to do this, but at the time I had a mortgage, I had a baby, I was married. I'm like, I can't fail. And so I say that to say that, man, when I went out, I started, I was the traditional, I drove my car to an industrial park. I knocked on every door. I did cold calls. I mean, there were times where I wouldn't go home if I didn't sell an order because I'm like, this can't not work. And so when I was looking around and that worked well for me, right? I did well. I would go with the catalog or the flyer and I would knock on every door and I would, sell the special of pens over and over and over again. And then I started looking around at other industries, right? And the people who I was paying attention to, the people whose videos I was watching, the blogs I was reading, and I kind of realized that the thought leaders in all of those areas were creating content of some kind. And again, this is 10 years ago. And I started looking around going, do I always want to be this guy? Do I always want to be the guy who is going to the industrial park and, just trying to make the next sale? Or do I want to be the kind of person where people seek me out? Because I realized that the thought leaders that I was following, I was seeking them out. If they had something to sell, after they'd built trust with me, I was buying because they were providing me so much value. And so I sort of started modeling it after that. And to be honest with you, Melissa, like I tried a bunch of stuff. Like I threw a blog at the wall, I threw a video at the wall, and it was like I had, sputtering ideas of success. Maybe one blog post would do well and then the next one wouldn't, and you'd get discouraged and you'd say, well, maybe blogging doesn't work, right?
Right.
And I think where the magic happened was when I finally decided, look, it was the biggest piece was delivering marketing joy. And that's where I had seen a statistic. I think it was from Gary Vaynerchuk, who said that the average web show doesn't get to episode 5. And so I said, well, heck with that. I'm going to start with 5 in the can and see, so that I can at least get to that number. And that allowed me to really start building some momentum. And that consistency is where the magic happens. And I think so many people quit with content before the good part. And so I think that's one of the ways I made that transition is going from that traditional, knock on the doors to wanting to create content was by just going, look, where do I want to be in 10 years? And that's like kind of reverse engineered it from there, if that makes sense.
100%. And I actually wanted to kind of pick apart what you said because I feel like that piece of you're trying something and you don't get instant gratification, right? Like you're like, I took 4 hours to research, write this blog, edit it, the nice multimedia and images are embedded. It's like, I can't wait to just have all those leads or contacts come in. And it's like crickets, 0 views, 0 page like traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just heartbreaking. But I feel like people don't always have a great benchmark for measuring success.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also part of the problem. It's not necessarily that they're people who are like flighty or flaky or just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to bounce to the same thing. It's like they just don't know how to measure. So for you, like the successful integration between traditional sales and inbound marketing, and content marketing, which you do really well, like for you to keep that consistency going, that motivation, how are you benchmarking your success?
Yeah. I think it's funny when I first started DMJ, and I think I kind of go back to that because it's a lot easier for me. 350 episodes in, I can say, oh yeah, it's done this and it's done this and it's done this. but 10 episodes in, it was really hard and I remember, and I can't remember what episode it was, but Roger Burnett, I don't know if you know Roger, but he came on my show as a guest. And the way we started, yeah, absolutely. The way I used to format the show is I would ask the guest 3 questions and they would ask me 1 question. And on the show, he asked me, why are you doing this? What is your ROI? What do you hope to gain from it? And I remember saying to him, I don't know, but I don't know what the ROI is. I just know this is the right thing. And so I need to stick with it. Right. And I think Seth Godin answered this like a year or so ago in his book, This Is Marketing, better than I've ever answered it. And I think what I've come to realize over 5 or 6 years of it is it's how you measure it, right? What we want to do with content marketing is we want to measure it like direct marketing. And it's not direct marketing, it's more brand marketing, right? Yeah. So brand marketing being your Super Bowl ad. Coca-Cola doesn't expect you to leave the Super Bowl party when you see that ad and run out and buy Coke, right? Yeah. They're raising your brand awareness so the next time you're at the grocery store, you buy it. But both direct marketing and brand marketing are really important. But if you try to measure brand marketing using direct marketing metrics, it will always fail. Yep. And so I think it's important when you go on a content journey that you realize that it's like, this is brand marketing. And if, the good Lord willing and the creek don't rise, that somebody clicks on this and they come and buy the pen that you're talking about, that's great. But I think in the first 6 to 12 months, you are going to be frustrated if you measure it specifically based on that. I think the analogy I always use, Melissa, is that content marketing is a lot like fitness. Yeah. Right. So the first couple weeks, like you're really enthusiastic and you go after it. But after 2 weeks, you're like, well, I don't have 6-pack abs and I'm really sore. Right. And I don't want to
eat pizza all the time.
That's right. This hurts. I don't want to do this shit anymore. And so I think that the people in a fitness plan, right. The people who keep going for 90 days or 120 days, or those are the ones that see the incremental difference over the great period of time. And I think content marketing is the same thing. You just got to show up and do the sit-ups every day. And if you do that 6 months down the road, you're going to look and go, oh, I'm glad I kept going. And I think, and I'll tell you a super quick story. The probably 20 episodes in, Mark Graham set up an interview. So he and I got the opportunity to interview Seth Godin. And Seth Godin's a hero of mine. This was a big deal. And we're getting ready to do the podcast. And it was a live streaming podcast. And again, this was probably 6 years ago. That wasn't happening all the time. And right before the podcast started, Mark was sort of introducing us, and Seth said, oh yeah, I've seen you're delivering Marketing Joy, which I about fell out of my chair. And he said to me right then, he said, hey, keep that up. In 3 years, you'll be glad you did. Now, like I said, I was at episode 20. I don't think I had 21 done, right? But it encouraged me with a little perspective. Like Seth has been writing a blog post for however many years every single day. He didn't get there on day 7, right? Or day 20. It's that all showing up. And over time, it almost always pays off.
What a cool story. No, I think that's so awesome. And I think kind of to delve into your answer is it felt not only right to you, but it's you also got those nods of encouragement. Yeah. And then you were committed, you honored the commitment that you made to yourself and your business, which I think is a big thing, as well as sometimes change doesn't always feel good in the moment, but
sure doesn't.
Everybody wants the results, but it's if we could all let's be honest, if there was an easy button for some of the stuff that I did in my day, I would press it, and still get the result. I'm not going to sit here and lie, but I think that that's so cool that is the mindset that you have. And I think mindset hacks as well, going back into personal development has definitely been part of the key to your success. So for you, overall the consistency piece, like we talked about, it feeling right, getting that validation, from our peers, kind of like not necessarily relying on it, but then also on the days when it's hard, being like, I made this commitment, I have this goal, where do I want to be in the next couple of years? Do I still want to be going door to door? Maybe I want to see my family a couple of nights of the week, not be hustling out there all the time. So that being said, like, was there other mindset hacks or practices or strategies or things like that that really aided you, when those times were tough, to keep going?
Yeah, I think one of the things over the past, few years, whether it's through, business or content creation, a question I got a lot was, how do you, when do you sleep? What are you doing? And
Are you a robot? How's this
yeah,
happening? Like,
and when you get like that, then all of a sudden you start to, I think, try to study, how can I be more productive and how can I be more effective? Okay. And so for me, I started to really do studying of productivity and what was good and what worked for me. And I think that last part's really important, because we all read those books that say, okay, if you're going to work out in the morning, then you need to roll right out of bed. You have your stuff laid out, and your shoes are you got the whole plan. And I can tell you right now that if I do that, I'll keep that up for a week and then I'll stop, because I hate rolling out of bed and just starting working out right away. And so understanding the science of productivity and that mindset that you're talking about, but then mapping it to your behavior.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Is really powerful. So for me, that doesn't work. But I do want to work out first thing in the morning, or in the morning, because of my mindset. It helps, create creative thinking and that sort of thing. But what I found is, if I get up, have 2 cups of coffee, maybe write a little bit, watch, take in some good stuff. Then after that second cup of coffee, I actually feel like working out. Mm-hmm. And so I combined with, I want to do it first thing in the morning, but not right as I walk. I created a lifestyle that I would be able to keep up. Okay. Right. And then once I did that, it became a habit and it became a routine. And that's when I get a lot done in the first 3 hours of my day. And I think that allows me to do that piece, the content piece and that sort of thing, so that when I come to work, I can actually do the sales piece and the work piece. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
It's about batching, I think, so many times.
Oh my God, no, I love, like, batch work is where it's at, 100%. But I mean, going into what you're saying is, it's like a framework, right? Like, you're looking for inspiration. You're trying to, like, live a self-actualized life. Like, you're trying to get to the next level, that ideal that you have in your head of who you want to be as a person and as, like, a business owner. And I think, like, I've also made that mistake, is where it's like, I'll look for inspiration or a framework or some type of system or process, and I take it so literally that I'm like, I don't understand, like, why I can't do these 12 steps in a day, like it lists in the book. And it's kind of just like you said, it's like, being real with yourself as a person, of like what you'll actually commit to, and not letting it be an excuse to you to backslide, to not get where you want to go. But, also too, as well, just being, like you said, like, you can be a productive morning person if that's your goal. But maybe if like you need those 10 minutes to orient yourself, getting up out of bed, like you're not going to just start like busting out push-ups as soon as you wake up,
Yeah. Well, I think perfection is the enemy.
Yeah.
So many things. I think we hold ourselves back. You mentioned, why can't I do these 12 steps? Like, there's so many journeys that never begin because people are like, oh, that would never work for me. And I think one thing that this is a fairly recent epiphany for me, is that I have a treadmill down in my basement. And so what I've found is, my decision to work out isn't when I'm in the basement. Once I get to the basement, I always work out. Always. I've never walked down to the basement and then gone, nah, I don't feel like it, I'm going back up. I make the decision upstairs.
Yeah.
Once I walk down the stairs, I'm doing the thing I know I'm supposed to do. The decision point, the breaking point, good or bad, is upstairs. And understanding in your own life where that decision point is, or where you're going to get the hiccup, can be really powerful. Like, I've read a ton of times where somebody would be like, okay, once I get in the cab to go to the gym, right? Then I know I'm going to work out, because or somebody said, once I get in the pool, I know I'm going to swim a certain amount. So it's understanding the the breaking point, and then giving yourself permission to not be perfect with it. So
Yeah.
the thing I've done to convince myself to work out every morning is I tell myself I'm going to walk on the treadmill while I watch TV.
Yeah.
Well, that's not intimidating and it's not hard. And once I get on the treadmill, I often run. Right? So I've convinced myself to go downstairs by telling myself I'm going to walk. But once I'm down there, I'm doing the things I need to do. And I think those are little hacks that you were talking about that help you, kind of take the small steps that move you forward.
Yeah, no, I like that. And it makes like big results. And people, I think that's a good thing to emphasize. It doesn't always have to be like this huge event that happens in your life. It can be these little moments in your life that add up, and through consistency get you the result of what you want. But you've gone into quite a couple of details about things that have helped supported you with consistency, but is there like any other tools, maybe people in your life? Because I think that's important too as well, or maybe things that you have now in your current workflow that help you create content consistently for yourself and your business.
Yeah. So the thing that I don't give credit enough is our team here. I think getting started, I had a team that helped me edit. At this point, I'm doing a lot of that now, but having a supportive team around you that take the things off your plate, like, again, I think in entrepreneurship, it's hard because you feel like you have to do everything.
Yes.
Being able to delegate some of the things that I'm not as good at so that I have the time to do the things that only I can do. I think that's one of the things that I've gotten a little bit better at in the last few years is looking at my calendar, looking at the business and saying, what are the things that I'm the best person and I'm the only person who can do that. Now it might be meeting with a vendor. It might be going to speak at a conference. It might be creating this piece of content. Those are things that only I can do. Right. But there's a ton of other things that not only could somebody else in the building do, but they're better at than me anyway. Right. And so that's a piece. Content calendar is one of the things that people talk about a lot. And I think that's really powerful, is just saying, kind of setting it up, telling the audience, telling yourself that on Wednesdays, there's going to be delivering marketing joy. On Fridays, promo up front is coming out Friday, come hell or high water. Bill and I talk a lot about this. It's like, I think was it last year? I think that, Friday, it was Christmas Day, but there's a promo up front on Christmas Day. Absolutely. Because it was Friday. And I think that it builds integrity with your audience, builds their trust, but it builds it with you too. It's like, no, I said I'm going to do this. And I think that that's something that's missing in our culture today. Not all over, but I think it's something that could certainly be strengthened is, by God, I shook your hand. My word is my bond. I said Friday, we'll be there on Friday. And so those are things, and I don't know that that's a specific hack, but establishing that calendar and then being willing to, no matter what, come and show up on that day. Even, again, back to the perfection thing. Even if it isn't my best work, I'm still going to be there. And so, and usually by showing up and trying to do the work, you end up doing good work anyway. But it's giving yourself permission to not be perfect helps you start.
So delegation, scheduling out, and then also as well, just honoring again, like that commitment. And also, don't you feel as well, like, even if you show up on those days where, like you were saying before, like it may not be your best work, or you feel like it might not be your best work because of whatever, like external circumstances, you often look back on those moments and you feel proud, like you feel a sense of pride in yourself. And I think that's a big thing too. It's like your own kind of like internal reward of like, yeah, I stuck to it. I did it,
Yeah. Well, it's a couple of things. Number one of the best ways to build your self-confidence is to keep promises with yourself. Right? Like, just keep promises with yourself. Keeping promises with other people is important, but if you want to build your own self-confidence, it's doing that. And then the other piece that pops into my head is, we don't know who's always listening or watching. I think, I've talked about this in the past. Like, let's say you start a blog post or a video or a podcast and you've got 20 listeners. And then the next week there's 20 listeners. And the next week there's 20 listeners. They're not the same 20. Like, almost never. Now, maybe 5 or 10 of them are the same, but the other 10 they're different each time. And so that audience is growing even if you don't know it. That was that became evident to me after doing the podcast for a year or so. Bill and I ended up, it was actually the ASI or the PPAI show, excuse me, in Vegas. And people were coming up to us and talking to us about listening. And I'm like, I didn't know any of these people. And that's when it occurred to me. I'm like, well, we might have 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 people listening, but they're not the same, 1,000 or 2,000. They're different each week. And so that the audience is almost always bigger than you think it is, even if the numbers don't feel big as you get started.
Can I also ask as well, like for somebody who has been going at this for so long and is so prolific and has been consistent, is there any episode, blog post, podcast, like speaking engagement that has just like, you're like, man, like, look at this, like I did this. I'm really proud that I did this.
I don't know if I could pick out one, just because there've been a lot. I think probably the one that pops into my head that I talk about, like, and is episode 100 of Delivering Marketing Joy. Seth Godin actually agreed to be a guest, and that was kind of a cool culmination of, hey, you encouraged me to keep going.
Yeah.
And then at 100, he agreed. He's been on twice now, and so those are good because I think I asked him early, like I was asking him way early, and he was writing back no in the most kind way. Like he was very respectful or whatever. And so when he encouraged me to keep going, and then 100 episodes, again, that's 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Like that's 2 years. He's like, yeah, absolutely, I'll show up. I'm like, to me, that was really, okay, I'm on, like 2 years in, I'm onto something.
Yeah.
And so that, but and I, as a side note, I think I'd be remiss if I, doing the podcast with Bill every week, doing something like that consistently with somebody else who lives in a completely different state and being able to keep it up over the course of years. I'm really proud of that. And I'm proud of the conversations that Bill and I have around the industry. That I think we started it with the idea that we're going to talk about the stuff that is like the parking lot conversation. You know how like in every meeting, there's the meeting and then there's the parking lot meeting, which is really about the shit that's going on.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do that. And I'm proud that we have done that over and I know that's not a single episode, but I'm proud that we've done that.
No, and I'm glad that you mentioned both. I think they're both like just great moments in your career. And I feel like especially the one with Seth, but I'm really glad that you mentioned Bill, because I wanted to ask you is, I feel like I have never seen, unless I have overlooked this, kind of the story of how you guys got together. Because I feel like, finding a partner, like it's hard enough to find somebody that you want to do business with, but somebody to do consistently, that you get along with, that complements one another. And I feel like you guys are such a good yin and yang. Like I listen to your podcast on Fridays. I always enjoy it. I always think it's great content. So like what brought you guys together?
So this is funny. I'm probably not going to do this story justice. Bill tells it better than I do. But so Bill and I actually worked together at Halo.
Oh, okay.
So and we didn't always get along there. Bill, I think, tells it that we've been friends for 15, or we've known each other for 15 years and been friends for 7, right? Like something like that. So when we both left Halo, we weren't friends. We didn't really, not that we didn't like dislike each other. We didn't get along necessarily, and we didn't hang out or any of that sort of thing. Well, as I was kind of starting DMJ and breaking out on my own with Hospin Marketing, he was launching Brandivate. And it's a great story about social media, actually, because both of us were creating content. Bill was writing a blog, I think twice a week at the time. I was doing this DMJ thing. And I'll give him the credit. He started commenting on my interviews. And as you know, when you create content, sometimes you're just starved for any kind of feedback, right? Like, and so Bill was always really kind. And then I would reciprocate. He wrote a blog post, I'd read it, comment on it, share it, and we actually sort of redeveloped our friendship sort of through social media. And then we both did the Promo Kitchen thing, and we started doing content together there. And we did a thing called Salt and Pepper, where we just literally debated, like he'd take one side of an issue, I'd take another side, and we'd argue in a blog. And we did that live, and it sort of evolved into, and it was really fun because we didn't know the topics, and it evolved into unscripted, and then now it's promo up front. And yeah, what you said is exactly right, because Bill, I don't know that I could do a weekly podcast with somebody else. Bill does such a great job of not only coming with topics and being a great host, but he drives the bus on the details and kind of keeps me on task. And so you're 100% right in getting the right partner and doing something like that is not only hard, but it's incredibly important. And so Bill's perfect in that sense for me.
I love that though. I love how you guys like came together, how it was like just such a natural kind of like fit and everything. But yeah, no, great job. Like I said, everything that I've seen you guys do together, it's always engaging. It's always like cool. So very, very cool that you guys have stayed committed to that. So
absolutely.
I know you're always looking for new resources for your audience. So I wanted to ask you, and I just want to make sure that I get the title right. It's called Better Business You, correct?
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, tell me a little bit more about Better Business You.
Yeah, well, we, I think Better Business You, it's betterbusinessyou.com. And so people can go there and learn about it. But it's essentially an online learning university for entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial people, salespeople, that sort of thing. We wanted to create something that was affordable. Going back and getting an MBA is so expensive. It's such a tipping point for that. So we've created this with a yearly subscription, and the yearly subscription is $219, and you get access to every course on there, and we'll be adding more courses. And so the response so far has been really good. And now I'm actually at that point where I'm excited to add a few more courses as we go. And so, yeah, we've got courses on social media, how to do that right, building a website that works. I did a whole thing on how to get more done, which is kind of talking to that, the productivity and personal development side. I think there's like 6 or 7 courses right now, and we're going to be adding more. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Now, you in developing this, like, is this something that's going to be a strict offering just for promo? Are you trying to help entrepreneurs like more generally for an audience? And then, I know it's obviously like sometimes you develop an idea and you don't always have like every I dotted, every T crossed, but for you, like, is there going to be a schedule where you're like, maybe quarterly we drop like 6 courses or something like that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'll be honest, we started with entrepreneurs in mind. Now, a lot of the folks who follow our content tend to be in promo. So entrepreneurs in the promo industry, it's totally appropriate for them. But one of the courses is how to utilize branded merchandise to grow your business. Well, people in our industry, hopefully, know how to do that, right? But I want this to be appropriate for anybody. So anybody who's starting a business or trying to grow a business, entrepreneurs in general is probably who it is. And then I don't have a specific calendar of when I'm adding classes or courses, but I've got literally behind the computer, I've got a whiteboard with ideas on new courses that are coming up. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's one of those projects that, as much content as I created, I said that this is the biggest, most stress I've ever had in putting something out there. And so when it kind of went out, it was super rewarding.
Yeah, I was looking at it and I was like, this is so cool, because honestly, the more information that can be out there, especially that's not gated, you know what I mean? Because I feel like it's really hard sometimes to find good quality resources, especially when you're just starting out. And I like that you're also kind of like, I wonder what will come of that for you in your business, what other opportunities, since you're kind of opening yourself up to a more non-specific audience, like entrepreneurs, but not necessarily in promo.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you plan to kind of like add into that outside of courses? Like, will there be retreats? Will there be masterminds, workshops, that kind of stuff?
That is a great question. So I think the next step, really is developing more courses. I want to make sure, my big thing is if somebody pays for this, I want them to feel like they've gotten 10 times their money's worth. And so one of the ways I feel like I can do that is by getting more and more courses out there. So when they get in, they're like, okay, this is worth 10 times $200. No big deal. I think the next evolution of this might be live events. Where we could bring in additional speakers. Obviously, I would be one of the speakers, but there are other people doing the coursework. Doing those in person, I think, would be a great, not the word substitute, but addition to the online learning. So that, to me, that's sort of the next step.
That's awesome. Alex, I'm excited to see that blossom and like see the progression for your business. So is there anything else that you would like to add about that before we go into our final fun question?
No, that's good. I would say that if people want to check it out, it's just betterbusinessu.com.
Okay.
And then if they have ideas on courses that I should have, I would love to hear.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. So we always end with a fun question. So I wanted to ask you, if you were shipwrecked on an island, you had food and water taken care of, what's one item you would bring with you? It could be anything. Be anything at all, not necessarily promo. It doesn't have to be logoed. It could be whatever.
Okay, good. Okay. So
no
this
pressure.
this is always a fun question to me because it seems so obvious that the right answer is a boat.
Right? Or like a phone, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Something that would get me rescued would be the thing. But without that being, let's assume that you're saying no, that there isn't a phone a friend version of this. This is going to sound kind of boring, I think, but I think books of some sort, because if I'm going to be there for an extended period of time, I'm not a person who sits still super well. So reading is something I enjoy. So I would say some books to take my time until I'm rescued.
That's
I think that would probably be it.
Is there like, maybe to put you on the spot even more, what book would it be? Like if it's a book, what book from your library would you pull?
One of my favorite books of all time is I read a lot of nonfiction now, but growing up, a lot of fiction. There's a book called Ender's Game, which ended up being turned into a movie, but I read it years and years and years ago by Orson Scott Card. That's probably one of my favorite books of all time. The movie was terrible.
They often are, like, you know what I mean? Like you have your vision in your mind of what these characters are, and then you go to the movie theater and you're like, everything's wrong.
Well, the thing is with that one, everything wasn't wrong. They made changes in the plot that had no, like, the characters are good. That, like, it was like, it just didn't make any sense why they made the change. And I'm just like, that was irritating. So read the book instead.
Okay. All right. I'll have to check it out. I remember like hearing that, like, I think it was like on my high school, like one of my high school, like reading lists, and I just never got to it. So maybe I'll check it out though.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. You're awesome. Amazing as always. Keep up all the amazing work that you do in our industry. And thank you so much for being generous of your time. It really means a lot to me.
Oh, I'm super flattered. This is one of those, I was talking to my wife about this at lunch years and years ago. When I first started in the industry, I would reach out to ASI and PPAI because I wanted to, write an article or whatever. And I wasn't ready. So the idea that it has come full circle and you're willing to ask me questions, I just could not be more flattered. So thanks.
Oh, thank you. No, thank you so much, Kirby. I appreciate your time and have an amazing day.
Back at you.
Thank you.